student coordinator for Physicians for Social Responsibility, working with the students across the country. And let's get started on learning about fundraising. So the purpose of this presentation is twofold. First, to get a better understanding of that scary word fundraising, so it doesn't seem like such a daunting task. And second, to provide you with some of the outlets and examples that you can learn from and or replicate in your campus or in your community. Why is fundraising necessary for social change? Why is fundraising important for your student group? And so forth. So the first thing I want to have you think about is, who do you give money to? Oopsies. Why is it this working? Sorry, that was the job. Who do you give money to? Consider the last time you gave money to a person or an organization or cause. Who did you give it to and why? For me, I give to friends and family when they ask for a good cause. I'm in grad school and I know the pain of loans and what it feels like to eat local and be healthy on a small budget. Nonetheless, when a roommate of mine was diagnosed with bone cancer and some friends organized a team for Relay for Life, I didn't hesitate to contribute and participate. Another story I can think of is of another PSR member, Matthias. He rarely gives people on the street, but there was a guy who stood outside the metro every Friday playing the triango, which is a native Bolivian instrument similar to the ukulele, but with 12 strings. And this reminded Matthias of his time with Peace Corps when he was in Bolivia and the warmth of the people there. So he began to give a few dollars every Friday when he saw that individual. So emotional connection also plays an important role. Lastly, I give money to charities that I trust, such as Habitat for Humanity or UNICEF, or whom I've worked for in the past or read about and can be confident that my money is going to be used for real change and to help real people who need it. Those who are on the call, I'm going to just be quiet for a moment to see if anyone would like to share their example of who have you given money to and why that was. So feel free to chime in.
I've donated to food banks, and I've also to certain environmental causes that are extremely timely or are kind of in an emergency situation.
Thank you for sharing. So the point of that was kind of just to have you think about what is it that compels a person to give money, and that way we can begin to think of how do we harness that power for our own organization, whether it be PSR or another organization if you're on this call. So next, what is fundraising? Fundraising is the act of raising money by asking for it. You need to ask. And what makes fundraising successful? First, the I just don't know what to say reaction, or how can I explain why we need the money? Why would my friends, acquaintances, or business want to hear about this from me? And the answer is easy. If it's a cause that's meaningful to you, it will come through in how you talk about it. No one ever has all the right words every time, but listen carefully to someone speaking about his or her passion. Whatever it is, the words flow quickly and smoothly. That's because they feel a passion to understand the subject. There's no pressure or nerves, just an explanation of the care and concern about whatever it is that has a meaning and importance to them. That's the way it should be when you talk with someone about a cause you truly believe in. Just say what's in your heart and explain why you're involved, why the cause is meaningful to you, why you give generously of your time, spirit, and hard-earned money. It's about changing a life and making a difference. And all you're doing is asking someone to join you in that journey. Giving them that opportunity to change a life and to make a difference. I mean, who wouldn't want to at least consider doing that? And what's the worst they can say? It's a one-word answer, no. And that's okay. The word no is not too harmful. There's nothing worse. Maybe it's just not the right time for them. Maybe they don't have enough information about the cause. Maybe they're happy it's your passion and not theirs, but no is the worst that can happen. You just walk away without the donation that you wanted to get. However, the good that happened during that time when you asked that person for a donation was that you got to share information about your organization, about your cause, and you were able to raise the awareness about an issue that is important to you. and that could potentially open the door to a gift in the future. So what is it that we need to know to fundraise effectively? There are some initial questions that you're going to want to consider. You're going to consider how much money is needed. You want them to think about a budget. It gives context. It puts things in perspective. It also gives you goals, concrete goals that you can work towards. Another question is the purpose just to raise money, or is it also to raise awareness? When possible, you should try to combine fundraising activities with promotion of your ultimate mission of the overall of your organization. So ways to do that is to hand out material at the same time, or make an appealing public outreach booth when you're trying to collect funds and maybe signatures for something. Just be creative. And this will also help acquaint people not only with what you're doing, but why you are doing. Because remember, the why is important. That's where your passion gets to come through. Then you're going to want to think about what resources are available to support fundraising. So you need to do your homework. You need to figure out what public and private funding sources are available and what you need to do to access them, whether it be through the university or through a local business. We'll give you some ideas later in this presentation. And also, what is the time scale? Lay out a plan that will allow you to accomplish your goals. Make sure to include periodic meetings and ways to keep track of incoming resources. So one of the things that I know this presentation was promoted a lot to our student chapters across the country is we have an upcoming meeting in Cedar Rapids, Iowa this spring to build up our student chapters. So one of the ways is to do that within a chapter is to think of these questions and how can your student chapter then identify the objectives and goals and fundraising of the donors to succeed, to get the transportation scholarships to get out to Iowa. Next are sources of fundings for fundraising. So on the individual level, so for those of you who don't have money trees in your backyard, let's just brainstorm about some ideas. Do people want to share any unique sources of fundraising that aren't currently listed on this PowerPoint? We have individuals, events, communities, corporations, grant-making trusts, and foundations, and I wanted to see if there's anyone out there who had some creative alternate sources. So I'll be quiet for just a second. Okay, then let's go through this list. So on the individual level, think of parents, relatives, friends, fellow students, PSR chapter members, mentors, and so forth. As for events, as a source of income, go back to the days when you were in high school. There's a bake sale. Or think about community days in, where you live, or other organized actions with organizations that have similar goals to you and do a joint event. Think about your community, whether you're on a university for a student affairs office or the medical student association or maybe a board that you sit on. Then there's the companies and corporations. For example, Whole Foods, they donated to student PSR for an Earth Day event last year. There's lots of companies that are willing to give as part of their model. And also there's grant-making trusts and foundations. So for students, asking your university if they have a grant writing department is a really great starting point. You'd be really surprised at how many resources universities have access to. There is a huge list that people just don't tap into. So why do people give? I know there are hard science folks out there who are looking for the evidence and the concrete basis of what is it that makes a person give. And really, when it comes down to it, there's a physiological explanation for it. The oxytocin creates a positive feeling, and it gives you kind of that warm, fuzzy feeling, is the short version. So basically, any positive feelings combined with feelings of safety, some oxytocin, you get a cooperative, generous person sometimes, but not always. So in the further to explain why people truly do give, the real answer is they were asked. We want to examine the psychological motivation for giving. So if we understand what makes people donate their money to a given cause, we're going to be more successful on fundraising endeavors. The most significant reason that people are giving money is simply because they were asked. and they were also asked by the right people, and the people who were asking asked the right people. That made sense just then. So that can be you. You could be the right person to identify who are your target donors. Think of what your organization represents and become an ambassador of that mission. And when you're soliciting funds, target that audience that they'll be able to empathize with your situation, become an emphasize with your situation. So for people in PSR, think of local medical societies or other student organizations, faculty, PSR chapters, and related organizations. Personal concern is also a primary factor that influences individuals to give their time and money. You must be able to frame your issue in such a way that has impact on people and concerns them. Consider again the last person or group that you gave money to. How much of a personal connection did that decision involve, and what influenced you to feel that way? Just take a moment and think about that. So further, people also give because they trust the group or institution that they're donating to. They tend to agree with the plans that generally involves a higher level of ask from donors because it requires a more detailed budget and usually is more than you need to share with the general audience. This can be an effective technique in soliciting grant money for your administration or community groups or business. So I know not everyone is logged in on the presentation, but I have up on the PowerPoint some logos of the top five fundraising nonprofits. Those of you who can see the screen, if you could either type in or vocalize if you can identify any of these organizations, I'd like to see how far we can go. Okay, so Alex says she sees the Red Cross. Correct. Red Cross is, the American Red Cross is number 5 of the top fundraising nonprofits. The other fundraising nonprofits are United Way, Salvation Army, Catholic Charities USA, and Feeding America. These 5 examples, think about what they have in common. They're all well-established organizations. And they also have, most importantly, cultivated a good reputation in folks that trust them. Trust is key in all of this. You need to be able to feel secure in where your money is going to and that you're an organization that is going to use the funds appropriately. These organizations also have a significant level of transparency as far as what your donation will fund. This is something that you can use in effective messaging. For example, you can say, every $5 donation funds a growing child's lunch for a week, or every usable mug for a single year prevents 50 pounds of trash. People like to have those numbers in front of them. They like to know exactly what is happening with it. So just be upfront and do the math and figure out how that works. And one of the things that gets nerve-wracking is fundraising is a small group. Many people think that, well, we're only 20 people, or we are 20 people of this larger chapter, and we're not able to fundraise very much. However, according to the Black Book 2012 Charitable Giving Report, overall giving in the U.S. rose 7.3% among small organizations, so there is hope for small groups. You don't have to be United Way or the American Red Cross. So now I'd like to talk about some of the reasons why people do not give, because we've all had those moments where you ask and you get the no, and you want to think about what is it that you can do better next time so you can get the yes. So on the screen we have a list of the things that you should avoid when seeking funding. So for those of you who can't see the screen, I'm going to just read those out right now. They include what people don't give is they don't value the mission, they don't believe the group is stable or sustainable, it's unclear what the money is going towards, there's concern about the leadership, the wrong people are asked, there's inadequate cultivation, and lastly, the failure to ask or asking for a specific amount. So many of these situations can be minimized through more effective messaging and targeting of your audience. People aren't going to give something they don't care about or to someone that they don't trust. So be that group. State your goals, your need, and follow through with results. You need to follow through with that ask. You need to follow through with the thank you note. You need to follow through with telling them what had happened, what was the outcome. Another tip is to provide a suggested donation or levels of donation. This gives people an idea of what they're getting for their money, and it can help you clarify a goal for your group. So an example is at the moment I'm currently fundraising for the International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear Bike Tour, International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear War, their bike tour that happens every 2 years, and this one will be in Kazakhstan in the summer. And I'm fundraising as an organizer for the bike tour. So when requesting funds from the various affiliates across the world, I don't ask for a general, hey, can you give us money? I will ask them something specific and say, will you support us for $2,000 US, because this $2,000 donation will go towards either 1 or 2 transportation scholarships from participants from the Global South. That way it's specific, so the organization sees how much money you're giving. They have an idea of what does that quantify. And I also will end with I will follow up with you by X dates in case you haven't heard back from them. So that's just an example of how to give a more clear ask for a specific amount. So the importance of effective communication. So communication really must precede fundraising. Potential donors, they need to be aware of several things before you just ask them for money. You want them to be aware of your mission and goals. You want them to be aware of how you plan to achieve those goals, and also the benefits your organization will provide to that community. So an example of this will be provided later in the presentation about the example, which is the 2012 IPPNW bike tour that I just mentioned prior. So as this presentation is targeted for the student physicians for social responsibility chapter, but also open for others, I'm going to do a small focusing on student fundraising ideas. These include the 10% day with a local business. So you can partner with a retail business for a 10% day. So that's where you will bring in more profits to the business, and they will contribute 10% of the income of that day or during maybe a specific time period that you're working with them. You'll want to pick an individually owned store or a franchise. For example, like in the Midwest, Cold Stone Creamery is an ice cream shop, and they do this very often with lots of student groups. You have maybe a couple volunteers go and scoop some ice cream, and between those hours that you're there, they'll donate either 10 or 20% of the profits from that day or that time period. And there's lots of different things in your area of the country. Just look it up online. Other things are a silent auction. You can get local businesses or personal contacts to donate items and gift certificates for a raffle or an auction. This can be done in person at a specific time and place, or even over eBay. Further, there's for the campus side of things, if you want to prevent some things from happening, you can offer a driving service, the campus driver service, and offer cheap rides from parties or around campus, advertise, and as you're doing this, you can also advertise your organization. All those benefits will go towards you. Or if you want to be healthy, pick up a bike and give rides that way. Other thoughts can be a donation or benefit dinner. This can either be hosted by a local restaurant or a private or campus location. The dinner can also be tied to a theme or message. For example, think of small portions that can represent need, or culturally significant dishes, vegetarian, organic, environmentally friendly cuisine, and so forth. And then also look for sponsor organizations that aren't just yours, but other groups that you can pair up with, such as AMSA, for fundraising ideas. Then when it comes to student services, every school is different. Some schools may have a student senate or a graduate student organization, while some do not. So you need to check at your specific institution to see what's available. It's important to know what your school will fund and what is required to apply for the funding. So if that requires paperwork, or if it requires a budget, maybe a recommendation letter, or things like that. You want to make sure you do that in a timely manner. Likewise, if you've been associated with a group such as AMSA or environmental group, it might be useful to collaborate with them on a fundraising or seeking other student services, student service funds. So next is Kickstarter. Kickstarter, I'm not quite sure when it became popular, but I feel like anyone who works in the nonprofit world is familiar with what it is. So they are a for-profit company and are based in New York City. They interact with the backers and creators and find new projects to share. So if a project is successfully funded, they will apply a 5% fee to the funds that are collected, and that's their for-profit side of things. However, the Kickstarter really is great for those beginning projects because project creators are they need to set a funding goal and a deadline. So it gives the people who are doing the fundraising a lot of motivation to meet that deadline. And if people like a project, they can pledge the money and make it happen. So funding on Kickstarter is all or nothing. The project must reach the funding goal to receive any money whatsoever. So the all or nothing funding might seem scary, but it's amazing at how effective in creating momentum and rallying people around that idea is. And to date, Kickstarters have had an impressive 44% of projects have all reached their funding goals. So that's something to check out. If you just Google Kickstarter, you'll find more information there. So next, you want to think about an annual plan, but really you want to think about this first. You decide what you want to accomplish. You need to have that roadmap so you know how to get from point A to point B. So this is the first mistake that many people make when soliciting donations. They aren't even sure exactly what they want to accomplish, let alone have a plan for the how. This can come across to potential donors as a weakness and present you as an unfocused and even slightly irresponsible individual or organization. So you want to make sure that you don't have that happen. So you need to gain the trust to have potentially a long-term donor. So continuing in that annual plan, you're going to want to identify sources of potential support. You're going to evaluate the potential of each of those sources. You want to determine your monetary goal, choose solicitation techniques, develop your annual timeline, and set that fundraising budget. So as we've been mentioning here and there are, we've been supporting the idea of fundraising with another organization. So there are co-benefits doing fundraising activities. Here is a photo of I forget which student PSR chapters. I think it's at George Washington University. They're pairing up with AMSA, I believe, and doing a coffee event. But so, for example, Whole Foods, they donated, they sponsored our free coffee day during the week of Earth Day to support environmental health messages. So student PSR gave away free coffee to people who brought their own reusable mugs, along with passing out free information. So we simply took donation stands, but you could potentially arrange to sell the, sorry, losing track here. So you could then take in donations as well. And if you, for example, if maybe you had donated mugs, you could maybe try to sell them or ask, like, have a big giveaway if you have a donation, since there are legal issues with that. And this activity is really kind of a socially responsible message, and it's a great way to invite someone who's on the run just to learn a little bit more about your organization. Another example was what happened at the University of Wisconsin. Their School of Medicine and Public Health partnered together with the Wisconsin PSR chapter and hosted an annual dinner called the Bhopal Dinner, and this is a fundraiser for the Chingari Trust and Rehabilitation Center in Bhopal, India. So the Chingari Trust works with differentially abled children of victims from the Bhopal gas disaster of 1984, and they provide physical, occupational, and speech therapies, as well as special education. The annual dinner fundraiser is held on the evening of the anniversary of the gas leak, December 3rd, and features Indian food and entertainment. So this way you can kind of see you're bringing in food, which everyone loves, some entertainment. It's themed appropriately, and over the past 4 years of this event, 3 years of the event, it has raised over $6,000 for the nutrition program. That's just one way. If you create an annual event, it's something that people will be expecting the next year. So next, we have a little activity that I hope that people will be able to try and participate. I know it's a little bit hard on a webinar, but I want you to brainstorm about your chapter or your organization if you're not part of PSR in this phone call, and think about, what do you want to achieve? How much money do you need for that goal? What activities do you want to do with that? Where and how would you start? Whom would you approach? And how would you approach them? So those of you who can see the screen, you can see those questions listed, but I'm going to be quiet just for about 30 seconds. And then if after another 30 seconds no one starts to talk about, share their brainstorm, then we'll move on. But hopefully someone will be able to step up, please. So again, those questions were to brainstorm about your chapter. What is it that you want to achieve? How much money do you need? What activities would you do? Where and how would you start? Whom would you approach? And how would you approach them? So jump in anytime. Oh, please change slide. So we have one person who said they're not sure that at this time, which is totally understandable.
I guess I'll say for us as an ocean conservation organization, it's really hard for me to approach people, and I guess I need to really think about that. But I know that what we're trying to achieve is clean ocean. So this has been very helpful, teaching me where I need to look and how I need to kind of figure out where we need to go.
Thanks for sharing, Alex. Maybe one of the things, because it sounds like, as you just said, your overarching goal is for a clean ocean. Coaching individuals, think about something that sounds smaller, manageable, feasible, and done in a timely manner. Something that they'll see more immediately. So whether that be, the goal is currently to pass a policy by having 20,000 signatures. That might sound more feasible, and that leads you to your ultimate goal of a clean ocean. So that's something to think about.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Something more clear and concrete. Well, thank you for sharing. So the next part of this presentation, I'm going a little bit quick because I want to make sure there was time for questions and thought process at the end. But the next part of this presentation is focused on actually something that I had done I know beginning this presentation, and it's about how I raised over $6,000 for one event and the tools I use. And I think this would be very helpful, especially for those on the call who are potentially who are student PSR chapter members thinking about going to the IPPNW bike tour in Kazakhstan this summer. This is, I think, a great roadmap on how to fundraise as an individual for something overarching. So that's what this next part of the slide is, and then we'll go through a recap of everything. So how did I get involved with PSR. I was just like another student PSR member, worked at the level of associates and chapter mentors in Iowa at the time. And one day, Dr. Ree McHugh, who's pictured in that photo with me, she nominated me for this bike tour with International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear War. I never considered taking the work I was passionate about to the international level, but gladly accepted the honor and sat down and determined the necessary steps it would take to make a reality of going on this bike tour in Japan that summer when I lived in Iowa and would have to fundraise everything for it by myself. So like any large project, a timeline is critical to ensuring things are done on time, as well as to balance it with one's busy academic, work, or personal schedule. So I sketched out a timeline of when I would need to have things funded by, when I need to reach out to the media. So I created a press release, as well as to and a time schedule of when to physically train for this bike tour, since I'd never done anything like before. So a lot of this was setting goals, writing out a timeline, and looking at what were the necessary things that I needed to do to get to those goals. So I decided I needed to raise about $6,509, not only to host myself, but to also host 4 other students from the Global South to attend the International Physicians Prevention of Nuclear War 20th World Congress and their bike tour. So I decided to get the media involved, because to me, the media meant more access to people, more people to talk to, who could potentially be giving to this cause and learning about the importance of a nuclear-free world, which was the issue of this entire conference and bike tour. So I involved the media to reach out locally within the state of Iowa, as well as the states that I grew up in. I reached out to the newspapers, radio, TV, online media sources, which are often to make sure that they would either do a story on me and the fact that I was representing the U.S. as International Peace Order Ambassador, or do a story on the bike tour event and how there were people from 40 individuals from 20 countries cycling against nuclear weapons. That's a big deal. So I did this through creating a press release and tailored it for various audiences. I also created a flyer that was posted in public spaces, such as on campus in the community, like library or coffee shops and related establishments. So in this case, bike shops, because people who are cyclists might be more inclined to support someone's bike tour. As well as I've posted things on websites and created a Facebook page. And most importantly, there are all these things. I linked it to a reputable site, the PSR.org, IPPNW.org, so individuals could see the overall mission and see that this was these were nonprofits recognized and won Nobel Peace Prize in 1985, and could be trusted. That I wasn't just taking their money. So my goal during this time for fundraising was really to talk about it as often as possible. Uh-oh. Can everyone still hear me?
Yes, that was my error.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. So during this time of fundraising, my goal was to talk about the IPPNW 20th World Congress, where people, over 600 or 1,000 people from around the world arrived to talk about nuclear abolition and the point of this international peace bike tour. That is all I did, was to talk about it while fundraising. People tended to be impressed when a young professional or student is taking on such a large issue like nuclear weapons. So I was able to impress people with the knowledge and the passion of what I was involved with. And before the conversation turned from, oh, that's a cool thing you're doing, I made sure to let them know that I was also raising funds for this. I spoke with friends. I spoke with coworkers. I spoke at board meetings I served on. I went at professional development trainings, completely unrelated to the health field. I also talked about this. I've had a friend of mine, I talked media. I would talk to anyone who I thought would be influential to helping me spread the word. I made some small business cards with contact information, and so I was ready to give them that information, including a website for more information. You always want to be able to give people more information that they can take away, because when you're speaking with someone, their mind might not always be there. They might need to look at this later when they have a chance. And also, by mentioning that I was raising funds for 4 other students from the Global South who had fewer opportunities compared to like Americans, it made it much easier for me to ask for sponsorship. So when I was asking for myself and for others, it shows that it was not just a for me thing, it was for a larger group. Further, you're going to want to reach out to places that you would never thought would sponsor you. For example, I never thought I happened to reach out to Target and Active Endeavors and Patagonia. And these are places I would not normally thought of being in the health fields. However, Target and Active Endeavors each gave me a $20 gift card, while the shop owner who sold Patagonia equipment hooked me up with a friend because he knew that she was she served on a board that gave out grants, organizations that did things that were supposed to be responsible by what Gift Card does. So no matter who you talk to, there might be some cool things. I would never apply for the grant or go ahead and for this shop owner. Also, you're going to want to set up dates on your return. For example, to give presentations that create awareness, things that shows that stakeholders will gain from your experience. So they give you money, you go have this experience, and they want to know what are they going to get back in return. And by sharing this knowledge with the community, that's how you're getting back. So when asking for donations, it's important that donors see exactly how their donations will be used. So break down each cost. So on the screen here, you can see how I broke down the costs that were for me, as well as the cost for participants coming from the Global South. Further, state that any donation to your organization as a nonprofit is tax deductible. This can be very meaningful to some donors. So, use resources to utilize. This is a slide that there's only a couple bullet points on here, but I have a lot to say because I think there's a lot of valuable information here. So, there are resources everywhere. The trick is knowing how to identify them. Think of the Girl Scouts. They utilize their family, their neighborhood, and local grocery store to sell cookies. Granted, you're not selling delicious cookies that, I think it's now the season for Girl Scout cookies, but you're involved with a meaningful organization that people will support if they know to support you. Pull out a pen and paper and start writing down all your connections. So, for example, for the bike tour, I first identified my professional network. I happened at the time to be working in the field of international education, so folks there were happy to support my trip to the Japan World Congress and Bike Tour because it would increase my multicultural education, and they shared a passion for travel as well. I served on a board of nonprofits, and all those people, they understood the world of the nonprofits and how much of a struggle it is to fundraise for a good cause. Then let the media do the work for you because they're great. They have so many connections. Reach out to every form of media like I mentioned before. It only takes a Google search to find out who the contact person is of your newspaper, of the television station, and so forth. Send them messages with your press release, or better yet, go to their office in person and hand it to them. You want to make it as easy as possible for them to do their job because them doing their job makes it easier on you. Provide them with all the information in a clearly written and concise press release. Provide photos and web links. You'll basically spoon feed the news to them for them to then spoon feed to everyone else. And follow up with your contacts. If you haven't heard back from them, just send them another message or pop by the office and ask, hey, did you get my press release? And then they'll be like, oh, you're here in person, I get a quote? That does happen. Make yourself available for photos or a video shoot or speaking on the radio. It is worth it when a person you could never have come in contact with sees your story in the newspaper, on the TV, and donates. Let alone, it's not only about raising funds, this is about increasing awareness about your issue. That is, and there is a generation of medical and health professionals who care about and are working towards a nutrient-free world. So, sorry, that was going back to the bike tour. Just get as much publicity as possible. And in this day and age, one of the new sources of media is social media. So use that social capital. This is where being connected to the virtual world can really pay off. I know students, we get scolded sometimes for why are you on Facebook, but really Facebook has become a place of networking and learning about other issues. So tips that you can do is change your profile picture to the logo of your cause or event or organization. Post on your page or pages that you manage or are part of that are related to your cause and event. But avoid spamming your friends, otherwise they will never pay attention to what you post on social media. Use other forms of media such as Twitter, Instagram to give updates and the status of your fundraising or where you'll be. Announce things and share links to donation pages on LinkedIn, for example. It's another whole professional network. And also think outside of the box. Find your local Rotary Club, Veterans for Peace, Amnesty International, or environmental group and ask for their support by attending one of their meetings. Most of these organizations will have weekly or monthly meetings, so that's a great way to meet face-to-face and get the word out there. A key part of this is also the return to their meeting and give a presentation. They're much more likely to want to give to you if they know they're going to get something in return. Especially the Rotary clubs, they really do like presentations from within the community. This will increase your audience, and more people who may not have self-selected to learn about your issue will be exposed to it when you announce your goals as well as during your return presentation. And lastly, blogs. That is another great source of information, a great way to get information out there to another community. Thepatch.com is a website that's around a lot of parts in the country. So, those are just some ideas on resources to utilize. Oopsies. So identifying potential donors, oh gosh, there's still so much to say, but I also want to leave some time at the end here. But think of your community, think of every institution of your education, whether it comes from high school to undergrad to grad school and medical school. Think of your local business that you go eat at every Thursday with your friends, and organizations that have similar interests. And going back to your community, it doesn't always just mean your community of maybe your medical school or where you live, but think of what other communities are you a part of. Are you a part of a dance group that they don't know any of this side of you, that's this activist side, because you just do dance there. But expose them to that. They know you on a personal level. They're going to want to connect to you because they have that personal connection as we discussed earlier in this presentation. So think about all your connections and identify how they can be linked up to your cause. So going back to the press release, because this is often a question of what should be in a press release and how do you write it. It's really not that scary of a thing. It's pretty easy once you know what the format should look like. So you want to make sure it's clear. Hopefully the catchy title. There's an example on the screen if you can see it of the press release that I had used for the International Peace Bike Tour in 2012. You want to make sure you have your essential information, so the who, what, where, when, and why. You also want to use numbers. People like numbers. They like specific things. They want to know how many people are a part of this. Will my $5 donation go to X, Y, or Z, or are you not going to tell me? Other things in your press release should include links for further information, because if you're sending out this link as a digital format, people all they have to do is click on that hyperlink and they'll go to more information. Of course, have your contact information in case there's questions, and so that they can get a hold of you in case if for some reason your donation link isn't working. And other things to do is use social media, use links, use QR codes, and so forth to get out there in as many forms of media as possible. And upon completion of whatever your event is, or just share it. People want to see that what they have supported went to a good cause. So here on the screen, after doing this International Peace Bike Tour and learning about nuclear weapons abolition and portions of it, I became a lifelong activist for this cause. I did presentations in my community. I worked with my student chapter, and we did photo events with those signs in the middle of the screen if you see them. I did a panel presentation with other medical professionals in the area, Dr. John Racco and Dr. Maureen McHugh, and we teamed up with organizations like Veterans for Peace and the Friends of the Library and another organization, and had a joint event where we then had this panel, so we were speaking in front of many groups. I was able to reach out to schools and spoke there, so you were able to talk to the youth, and they're going to be the next generation of activists. You want to get them started early. You want them to be passionate about your issues now so that they will then become members. And other things is, in the bottom right corner, you'll see there's an event where we're folding peace cranes, because peace cranes is a large part of the nuclear weapons abolition movement as a symbol. And as you get more and more involved with your community, you're going to start to get those phone calls or those emails. People are going to be reaching out to you because they'll say, I heard from Joe Schmo that you did this presentation on this, and I happen to be a school teacher for 4th graders and would love for you to come and talk about this. The more you get out there, the more your name is out there, the more people will hear about you, feel that you're a credible group, be more likely to support you, and it becomes a positive cycle. So just to review in this presentation, what you want to do is really determine your fundraising needs, communicate your mission, ask for that fundraising, because if you don't ask, no one's going to give. And identify activities that are going to sell your program, your mission, and raise money. So there is about 10 minutes left that I'd like to open up for conversation or questions. So please feel free to either type any comments or questions or speak up.
I had a question about the QR codes. How effective are those in general?
Sorry, I didn't hear you. You were curious about the key what?
The QR codes, I guess you said they were. Like
the QR codes.
Yeah.
I think it's going to depend on your population that you're reaching out to. I felt that in 2012 they were pretty popular. I'm not finding them as popular now, but I figure it can't hurt because so many people do have smartphones. There was a trend into, what was it, late 2012 or was it early 2013? I was looking this up, that QR codes are actually more likely to be used by people in their 30s instead of people in their like their 30s and 40s instead of people in their teens and 20s, which is what I thought would be the case. You can create, if you just do a Google search, you can do QR code generator, and it makes a free one for you, so you don't need to put any money into that. The only downside is it might take up space on your promotion material, but it can't hurt also.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because I'm in my 20s and I've never used one before, so I guess that statistic is correct.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so in case of, well, I'll still stand here for people who still have questions, but before I forget, I just want to note that this presentation is online. It's on psr.org. I just want to show you where that. So if you go to, it's all about videos. So here's our home page. You go to this top bar on resources, click there. Scroll down a little bit and then you'll find right here, building advocacy skills. You click on that, you'll see our 5 different parts. So this was part 3 of the 5-part series. And right here is the PowerPoint from tonight. However, I had made some changes between when the one online was posted and what was presented tonight. So tomorrow, probably by tomorrow evening, the new one will be up there if you want to download this presentation. There is also the PowerPoint presentation from past 2 webinars we had. And next is next month in March, we're going to be hosting our lobbying presentation. We have yet to announce the time and date for that. Sorry, we want to do that tonight. But if you'd like to, please send a, you can on your screen for the GoToMeeting, you can send us your email through a private message, either to me or any of the organizers, and we'll compile those emails and make sure that we let you know of the announced date for the next webinar on lobbying. And then part 5 in April, we'll be having the webinar on advocacy writing. So those are just some things to look forward to. This is just a once a month type of thing. And just want to show a couple more things really quick. So for those of you who are on this call because you're interested in raising funds for the upcoming World Congress and Bike Tour with International Physician Prevention Nuclear War, this is our website. It's IPPNW-students.org/bike tour. And if my computer will load, lots of great information on here. It's a great organization, and participating in such large student events, though we have full professionals who are also a part of it. It's a great international ties for cross-cultural collaboration in the future. From the last bike tour, a group of students emerged who did not know each other before and organized a conference in Nepal and India. And the organizers came from, I believe, 6 or 7 different countries. So lots of work and great connections can be made within such a group. And the last plug I want to do is on Facebook, if you just check out PSR National, that I would encourage you to like page because we will post information pertaining to preventing what we cannot cure. And one moment, it's just loading a little bit slow. And you can also get reminders on there of when the next webinar will be. Sorry, my computer is a little bit slow there. Our Facebook, we encourage you to like that, and there's also a student page on there as well. So I just want to say thank you everyone for your time this evening. Really appreciate it. And I will stay online because there's still 4 more minutes if anyone has any questions or comments. I also welcome feedback on this presentation so we can improve this for the future. And also this presentation, one more thing. This presentation, we encourage you to download it and give this presentation yourself to your organization. We have developed this webinar series as advocacy tools that we want people to utilize to make your cause more effective. So I will end there and stay online for any questions. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much. I thought it was brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nancy. Thank you, Michelle. Nice job.
Thank you, Nancy. I hope you'll take it back to Seattle.
That's it, folks.
Okay.
Thank you, Julia.
Yes, thanks, Julia. Catherine, I guess I will talk to you all